Recently, two good friends of mine introduced me to Symphogear, is what I would say if the script hadn't been written many months since then. We started in February and finished in mid-March. It's now the end of August. You know, given how long it takes Symphogear to make stuff, maybe it's fitting. I definitely intended it to work out that way. Yep, I'm a good YouTuber. That's the intro. The beginning and end of Season 1 aged very poorly, given the whole Hibiki is going to die premonition. It was perfectly fine when the series first aired. However, Season 1 works really well otherwise in setting up the series and characters, especially Hibiki and Tsubasa. The concert acts as a double character moment, both for how Hibiki gets Gungnir, and funny sword gets the trauma, trademark. Some of the early fight scenes really do well to bring up the characters, especially how Tsubasa reacted to Hibiki having Gungnir and Crust having the armor stolen the day Kanade died. I think this is one of the best fights in the series, because a lot of later fights, I felt a bit lost keeping track of all the power scaling happening at any given moment to make something work. Here, it's raw relic against relic, and a swan song being used when it has genuine consequences for being used. Crust is also a neat addition here, but personally, she doesn't work as well for me as Hibiki and Tsubasa. I personally find later seasons handle her better, but she's alright here. The conclusion with Fine is neat, but one of the weaker endings personally. I think the plot twist of Ryoko being Fine and their base being Kadingir was really creative, but otherwise I don't have much of an opinion on this ending. Fine was kind of a one-note villain in Season 1, and I actually prefer what her presence and manner of possession mean for the characters later in the show. She's at her weakest in her own season. Lamau. Kortal Festgångenir! Kortal Festgångenir! Oh boy, now this is where we get to the goodies. G was the part that solidified my love for this series, and for good reason. Actually, many good reasons, but I can think of a pretty big one named Maria Condenzava Eve. Maria absolutely owns this season, and even though Hibiki is my favorite character in the show, Maria has the best writing in my opinion. Supposedly having the soul of Fine not only makes her threatening, but the way she hates spilling blood raises a lot of questions off the bat. You can tell immediately there's more at play, which we see more and more of as we go through G. In fact, Maria, Kirika, and Shirabe felt more like secondary protagonists than antagonists. Now, I expect everyone is waiting for me to talk about Funny Hero Man. Even though this is the season where Funny Hero Man is the main antagonist, I'm going to wait until the next season to discuss Funny Hero Man. Speaking of big villains, I love the sacrifice of Fine in episode 12. Having the literal and figurative ghost of Fine hang over this season, only for her to move on after being swayed by Hibiki's words at the end of 1, it felt like the best way to have her concluded, and in the perfect season to do so. Hibiki in this part is really interesting, what with her slowly being killed by her own power. Miku being against Hibiki being in danger also climaxes well in the later part of the season, where they get hit by the giant purification laser that will definitely not be important later. It was probably one of the most engaging parts in general, but also for Hibiki and Miku for this reason specifically. The finale wrapping up the whole ordeal with the noise... No, not that one. Ending the original noise with all 6 main gears was just an amazing conclusion to bring the cast together. I can sum up my thoughts on GX in one word. Thanks, life. There are a lot of power scaling and methods of winning the day that don't really stick with me from here on, but Dines Life gets a pass from me. I like the idea of the characters having to actually overcome the madness of empowered relics to boost their powers, and also the Ignite module just looks cooler anyway. The villains of GX personally are the best villains who don't become heroes. I have to add that caveat because Season 2 exists. And that's mainly because of the auto-scorers. I don't really know where I stand with Carol. I think she's neat and better than the previous two, but I felt Fine was more impactful in the series, and also the auto-scores are neat, but I feel the exact same unsureness about Elf9 as well, and Dr. Vera. Oh right, Funny Hero Man! Dr. Vera in G, I really wasn't so huge on, because of his cruelty towards Maria, and just anyone in general in pursuit of his goals. Like, he's funny, but he wasn't a fun-to-hate villain for me there. That's why I was so shocked when in GX, I was excited every single second this man was on screen. He's perfect as a comedic side villain in this part, and becoming the big baddie in G really held back what makes me love this character. Well, I guess that's it for GX. Let's move on to... Wait. Oh, God. Hibiki's father is a character that exists. Do you forgive this man? I'm not sure I do, honestly. I can understand the attempts of the show to humanize him, but like, no. Not only is his attempt to meet up with her excessively tone-deaf, but this dude has been an absentee father for God knows how long, and asks Hibiki to pay the tab for their meeting? Fuck this guy, moving on. Why the longest abbreviation is the second to last and not the last is beyond me. AXZ is the series I remember the least about off the top of my head. This season is just bizarre. I feel pretty indifferent about a lot of the antagonists too. Ween Margaret Love Live, the trans allegory, plural, a being best described as puntable, and Michael Jackson. No, he's literally just Michael Jackson. He wears a white suit, has flowing dark hair, and even gets naked in front of underage. This is the weakest season personally, but thankfully has a very good ending. Remember the beam of light in G? Apparently, Hibiki was purified of the original sin by that laser beam, and can now harbor divine power, which turns her into, this. That's cool, but then she escapes and beats Adam in his true form using her armed gear, which, up to this point, I thought she already had? Like, I thought her power was just to punch things really hard. I didn't even register that was supposed to be her armed gear or something. Man, though, talk about an incredible finale. Too bad I didn't understand half of it. Huh? Yeah, I already mentioned the beam, what about it? Of course it purifies everyone who gets hit by it. Wait. Oh! Hey, remember all that character growth Tsubasa had? What if we just undid it all? God, this bat. This bat! I don't think I've loved a design yet hated a character more in my life. These three villains are probably the most one note in this series, but I want to like Millark way more than I do. The voice, visual design, and abilities are super cool. I just don't like her role in making another moment of funny sword gets the trauma, trademark. Don't let that intro fool you though. XV is one of my favorites, especially for the second half. Despite Hibiki being purified of her original sin, I never felt like she was too overpowered in this season because of the strength of her foes and the sheer odds she is up against. The cliffhanger at the end of AXV leading into the season works so well, especially once Shemha is introduced. Not only is it a perfect thematic climax to Hibiki's arc, Hibiki and Miku's relationship, and the series overall, it makes it the highest possible stakes it can be. Not only the loss of everyone's free will, but the loss of Miku forever. I love how Hibiki not only saves Miku, but overcomes her doubts she's had throughout the series. The best and perfect ending to Symphogear. So, I may have a type. Hibiki is my favorite character in this series, not just because of her story, but also because she's just upbeat and fun with a heart on her sleeve. I really love her dynamic with Miku, and how much of the plot hinges on the strain between Hibiki being a hero and Miku wanting to avoid conflict and fear of losing Hibiki. I especially love how the relationship climaxes in XV, with Miku being possessed by Shemha. There's a scene I like where Hibiki is moping about upset, and her dad, yes, I'm saying something positive about him, ends up giving her the advice she needs that Hibiki uses to defeat Shemha and free Miku. There's your one nugget of praise, Akira, savor it. This bad boy can fit so much trauma in it. Tsubasa is probably my second favorite character in the show, and it's not hard to see why. Swordswoman on a motorcycle? Gotta be one of my favorite genders. For how brutal this series is to some characters, Tsubasa has it exceptionally rough, and not always in a good way. I guess XV wanted one last hurrah in Symphogear's greatest pastime. Say it with me, everyone. Funny sword gets the trauma! Trademark. Tsubasa visually is probably one of the most beautiful in the series, or at least because I'm biased towards blues and greens. It was nice looking through Google at all her art, at least until I found cock-4 of her, which somehow isn't the weirdest thing I found. You know this infamous scene? There's a Nendroid of it. Even in figure form, she's still suffering. No jar required. For the record, she also has my favorite two songs from the series, Defender's Brand and Sora A. So congratulations! I know it's not a typical song for Symphogear, but I really like Sora A. I can imagine it being pretty popular. Wait, what? Particle, what do you mean? You may have noticed I have said basically nothing about Crust during this entire video. That is because, wow, I have nothing to say about her. Like at all. I don't dislike her by any means, but alongside Hibiki and Tsubasa, her importance feels limited. Maybe I'd like her more if I liked boobs. Peak. Simply Peak. I'm putting these two together because, I don't know, I don't have much to say about them either. I liked how in G they had the whole dynamic about Fine. That was cool. Kirika's probably the cutest of the main bunch, and I like Maputatsu. I'm sorry, winners, I know she's your fave, but I really don't know what else to say. So yeah, that's Symphogear. It's pretty cool. It's definitely one of my favorite shows I've seen, and it really fits a niche I vibe with. In conclusion, if things don't go your way, kill God. Goodbye!